So one day I went to the Mr. Beast gumball machine to try to win a Tesla. I took my big coin, put it in the slot, gave it a twist, and then a ball shot right out of this thing. I was feeling pretty lucky. I picked it up, and inside the gumball was some cool socks and a chocolate bar. So it's Giant Rubber Band Ball Part 77, and the scale doesn't really work anymore, but it's 920 pounds. We're so close to 1,000 pounds, and we're going to get it there soon. This pile weighs 25 pounds, and we placed the entire thing, which took quite a while, but eventually we were done, and I jumped on it, then sat on it, then laid next to it, and then accidentally rolled it into the bang and drank it anyway, like if I should keep on going. So one day I bought a 30-foot balloon to try to pop it. I covered my head, and then I got white stuff in my nose, and then tried to air it up. It was really cool, and it made like these waves. It aired up for a little while until it was completely full. I untied it and then wrapped some rubber bands around it, and look at it. I hit it, did some ripples, and then here's it next to the rubber band ball. I shot it with a Nerf gun, then shot a giant rubber band at it, punched it, let it run, hit it some more, and it wouldn't pop, so I threw a basketball at it, then flex sealed so one day on it. Bam. Then got out a plunger and tossed it at it, and it went pop. Like if I should buy another one. So one day I decided to go dumpster diving behind a phone store to see what I could find, and it was empty. So I drove out to a different phone store, and it was locked. So I went out to Academy's dumpster, and it looked promising, but someone was already there, so we left. And ended up going out to this different sports and outdoor stores, and I looked through it and didn't find anything for a while until eventually I found a watch. A watch? And it didn't work, but it was still cool. And then I got in, kept looking, and went out to the side and found this speaker. And I don't know if it works. So this rubber band ball is just completely insane now. We dumped out all these bands to place on the ball and got busy looping each one. We looped the pile into two big strands of bands like this. It's really hard to move, but we pushed it to the center, and then we're starting to place the big loops of bands like this. And these videos cost a lot to make, so it's really helpful when you like and comment on it. My phone just doesn't do this ball justice of how big it is. It's so hard to push, and it's just so cool. And really hard to control because it weighs 1,150 pounds. So one day I decided to fill my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, but first I had to clean it. I swept it up for a minute until it looked like this. It was a little bit better, and then I got the ball pit balls. And I dumped them all in, and it looked like this. So I went in and laid down. It was pretty cool. I threw the balls in the air, and then I started trying to make it into this little hole. I missed, and then got close, and then kept going until I got it. Then I threw it at that hole, chilled a bit, and jumped in. And here's what it looks like with the door shut, just an underground ball pit. Let me know what else I should do. So after failing to destroy this snowman with my water gun and giant rubber band ball, someone commented to fill the super powerful water gun up with boiling water and then shoot it. But first I had to make another head because the other one was broken. I made it, put it on, and he was ready. I let some water boil, put the gun in, and it reacted like this. So don't try this at home because it almost burnt me. So I just filled it up with hot tub water and then went out and shot it a bunch of times. Until eventually the snowman looked like this. But that wasn't enough, so I got a bow and arrow out and shot it with a few arrows and then beat its head in. But the body is still rock solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented that they didn't think the giant balloon I bought was 30 feet. And yeah, I might not have had it aired up all the way, so we're going to try in this video. I got a completely new balloon, aired it up inside, but I thought it was too big to try and get to full height inside, so I tried to take it outside with a rope and the air pump attached to it. But the problem was it was way too windy, and the balloon felt like it was being vacuumed from the sky all the way up until eventually it popped. And bam, there went one really expensive balloon. So the other day I made this giant rubber band trampoline, and people wanted me to make it even bigger and add a lot more bands. So I spent another hour or so adding even more bands until it looked like it was about to bend in. It could support my weight, but I wanted to test its bounciness. First with this can that eventually exploded, and next with this basketball that didn't bounce super high, so I got out this watermelon, and it just went right through it. So I got out this tire that completely broke the entire trampoline and bent the metal clear like in half almost, as you can see right here. So I just threw it in the pool. So one day while scootering, I dropped my laptop and then dropped it again on accident, totally on accident. And I had to fix it, so I looked up on the internet and got some toothpaste and some lemons to repair the crack. I've dumped the toothpaste out, started brushing it really hard, and I brushed it for quite a while and realized it wasn't going to do anything. Yeah, so then I tried to fix this plate, and bam, it was bigger and better, and then I broke it. But then I tried the lemon juice on the laptop, and that didn't really work either. So then I just got sad. So one day I visited Soup Timmy, a Rubik's Cube artist, because a little while back he inspired me to make my own Rubik's Cube art, and I ended up making Shrek. But Timmy's like a Rubik's Cube pro, and he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds. I scrambled one for him, and it's almost as if he slows down time, because he got it done in literally 7.6 seconds. Then he showed me he can even solve one with one hand in 30 seconds while playing with a ping pong ball. He even has the fastest time while solving a cube hula hoop. I then had him mix up a cube for me, and then I beat his record, and finished off his giant art wall. Guess I'm just a pro. No, but for real, this stuff is insane. He even showed me a magic trick where he instantly solved the cube, then showed me this giant cube and a fidget spinner. So one day, about a year ago, there was this trend on TikTok where people were making these abstract paintings and selling them on eBay for a high amount of money. I made these 2 on my own that ended up bidding for a lot, but never sold. But I'm going to try my luck again. I went to Hobby Lobby, got a big canvas and some paint, and I was ready to make a highly valuable art piece. I decided to model it after my giant 1,000-pound rubber band ball. I started spreading out this blue paint, then a lot more, and then just dumped a bunch, trying to fill the entire background and make it blue. And after it was done drying, I came back with the yellow with a lot of swirls, trying to make the ball as abstract as possible and look really cool. I added the green and started kind of just doing that and mixing around until it looked like that. Then I started splattering paint everywhere, the white stuff, and trying to make it look starry and cool. And it ended up looking like this. I really liked it. I took some pictures of it, made the listing, and I called it Time Ball and gave it a really abstract, bizarre meaning. Follow to keep updated. It's now rubber band ball part 78, and the ball is so close to 1,000 pounds. The scales broke, but the ball should be about 945 pounds, and we're placing a bunch more bands. We eventually rolled the ball to a higher point, that way it would be easier to get the bands around the ball. We did this for a while until eventually we were done. This band flew in the sky. The ball should be about 970 pounds, and it's huge. My friend Brendan did this, then I fell off it onto a beanbag, and like if I should keep on going. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 59, and it's almost at 500 pounds. So I got out another box of the 15-inch bands to see if I could get it there. And this was one of the most challenging rubber band ball videos because the bands were super tight and kept breaking, and it was also really hot. So we ended up having to take a day and come back to finish the pile. And while we were placing bands, we talked about how weird it was we were even making this. But it's also super cool. Just look at it here next to me. I measured it 30 inches high and like 98 inches around, and then rolled it. And it almost took some stuff out. Then I tried to make a basket off of it, but failed. Then it was time to see if it was 500 pounds, but it fell 3 pounds short. So then I just rolled it off, like if I should keep on adding bands. So I can't believe this ball's still going, but I'm at rubber band ball part 57, and I weigh it in at 422 pounds, but I'm going to keep on adding bands and make it even bigger. And a lot of people wonder why I wear gloves, and it's because if I don't, the bands will rub against my hand and create blisters. And I kept on placing bands until we were completely out, and look at it, it's huge. I can stand on it with ease now, but not pick it up. And it's tall enough to use as a platform to fall off of and flip. Then I tried to do like this rolling trick shot and just fell on my butt. But I did make this dunk off of it and this basket. And it was finally time to weigh it in at 447 pounds. It is massive, like if I should keep going. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 70. It knocked over all these crates. Then I zeroed out the scale and weighed it in at 730 pounds, and it was time to add a bunch more bands. So my friend Brendan and I got busy placing this entire pile, which took so long, and we ended up taking a break and coming back the next day to finish it. But eventually it was done, and the ball is now even bigger. Look at it next to my head, me jumping on it, then me rolling it to Brendan, him rolling it back even faster, then dunking on it, and we weighed it back in at 755 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day on rubber band ball part 54, I loaded up the giant rubber band ball with my brother, and we drove it out to a warehouse where I would store it. I let the rubber band ball out and stopped it, and this is its new home. And then I dumped out a bunch more bands to begin working on it that night. And my friend and I got busy placing as many bands as possible as the night began to get darker. Now I'm in the process of getting another scale for this thing so I can get the exact weight perfectly. But it's massive and weighs around 370 pounds. I rolled it around, ran with it, and then rolled it back. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So this is my rubber band ball, and here's the world record. My ball is currently 1,400 pounds and a long way from the record at 9,000 pounds, but we looped all these bands, 50 pounds to be exact, until it was finished, and then we were ready to place them on the ball to get it one step closer to the world record. And just by leaving a like on this video, you can help aid in the journey to beating the world record. Here I am rolling and then falling off the ball like this, and here's the ball in all of its awesomeness. So one day someone commented saying I should fill this entire purple mattress grid up with all eggs. I'm only going to put about 60 eggs in there because I don't want to use that much food. I unzipped the mattress like this, and the purple grid is insanely cool. It looks like this and feels really awesome. I then opened up all the eggs and started placing them in. First one, and then a million more. Well, actually like 57 because 2 were broken, but yeah. I filled it as much as possible, and then it was time to fall on it and test them out. And the eggs did pretty good, so I got out my rubber band ball, but I couldn't even push it on, so I did another hop and then started stepping on the eggs like this, and it was crazy. They all just survived. So then I just punched one of the eggs like this and cracked it. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented saying I should throw these giant Orbeez at cars in the street. And I'm going to do that, but first I wanted to test some other stuff out. Throwing it against the wall, dropping one, throwing one at my friend, tossing one in this pool of Orbeez and comparing them, lighting them on fire, which didn't do much. So then I tried putting them in the microwave, which didn't do much until we put it in for over 30 seconds and they all started popping. And were really hot to touch. Then I tried crushing them with this ball, look at the slow-mo, and then it was time to throw them at this car, which I think they got mad. So I just ran.
This is my giant 1,600-pound rubber band ball, and as many of you know, it started from, an exploding watermelon. And for over the last 2 years, it's continued on past what I ever thought it would. Weighing over 1,600 pounds, we're on our way to a world record. Well, kinda, we're still like 8,000 pounds away, but the point is, this ball's come a long way, and it's only the beginning. Just kidding, because we're gonna completely destroy it. Yeah, just kidding again. It's indestructible. But the next part is part 100, and we're adding 100 pounds of rubber band. So stay tuned.
So one day I decided to make another aluminum foil ball because I couldn't find my other one. So I took a roll and patted it down to a ball and went all around until the roll was empty. And I had this, and then I got another roll and wrapped it all around. And I ended up with this. Then I put the final roll on, patted it down, and bam, an asteroid. Yeah, it's a decent sized ball. I threw it up in the air and then I compared it to my rubber band ball. Then I dropped the 75-pound rubber band ball all over and it made it this cool chair. And then asteroids started falling to the earth. Like if I should keep on going. This is rubber band ball part 64 and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long until eventually the pile was out. And the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. One day I decided to take this 500-pound pumpkin and carve it, make a jack-o'-lantern, and then do a giant elephant toothpaste experiment in it. And I just started off with a regular pumpkin carving kit, which wasn't going very well, so I started using a saw. Got the top off, and it was super thick. It was insane. And we began hollowing it out using a bunch of different methods. The spoon, a shovel, the crowbar. And it all only took about 20 minutes until it was looking pretty good. And the pumpkin was ready to carve. I drew a pretty basic-looking jack-o'-lantern face and began cutting. It actually was going pretty smoothly with the knife that came in the kit. I was shocked. I cut out the nose, the eyes, and the mouth, which was the hardest part, until it was done. It looked really good and it was time for the experiment. I poured the stuff in a bucket inside the pumpkin and then it was ready to go. And it went really fast and shut out the eyes and everything. And for not even measuring anything, it turned out pretty good. It looked really cool. I can't believe elephants brush their teeth with this stuff. So one day after buying 2 of these 30-foot balloons, one that popped to a plunger and one that I tried to air up all the way, but the wind took a hold of it and popped it. So I bought a third one now to finally try to get it to 30 feet. I waited for a non-windy day and was sure to even wear gloves so I didn't get oil on the balloon. It kept on blowing up until eventually there were striations in the balloon and it popped. Here it is slow-mo several times. So that's maximum height. There was even a big cloud of dust. Comment any other ideas. So it's giant rubber band ball part 77. I saw these little rubber band balls at the store, so I had to buy them all and compare them to my giant 895-pound rubber band ball. Mine was a lot bigger. I opened one up like this and compared it. And yeah, mine was way bigger. We're going to make it even bigger, and I'm hoping in the next month I can get this ball all the way to 1,000 pounds. And we noticed the ball was kind of egg-shaped, and it made it hard to place bands, so we moved it and put wedges down so the ball wouldn't move and placed it like this, and it helped a lot. It really helped round out the ball and make it look a lot better. We placed the final band and we were done. And the scale still broke, but the ball should be about 920 pounds.
So one day, after I made a video with these moon shoes, the company sent me a box, which contained the original moon shoes, a yo-yo ball, and these soccer boppers that I let my brother hit me in the face with. I then opened the moon shoes and was kind of confused. I had to wrap a bunch of rubber bands to it like this. I then stood on it and it was pretty stable. Here's what it all looked like. I then strapped them on my feet and headed out the door, with the help of a cane. And the shoes were a little bouncy, but very hard to run in. Yeah, not much faster. And here's my brother bouncing in slow-mo. And then he fell.
So one day I went to Walmart and got all the rubber bands they had to make another rubber band ball. Because a lot of people have been wanting me to cut my giant 300-pound rubber band ball in half with a 1,000-degree knife. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to make another smaller one, starting with this small one and adding a bunch more bands to it. Until eventually it looked like this. And it wasn't near as big as my giant one, but check out this cool little trick when you drop them. It launches them. And it was time to cut first this even smaller one. It cut it right in half and burnt right through it. And then this one. And it worked its way through. And eventually I sawed a little bit and it just popped all the bands off. Remember, don't try any of this stuff at home. It wouldn't go through the tinfoil ball, so I just threw the knife at the tree and stuck it. So one day people were commenting how I was going to clean all these packing peanuts in my storm shelter up, so I thought I'd show a little behind the scenes of how we did it. I got some friends to help me. We got a lot of bags and boxes and just started filling them up. There was really no amazing shortcut around just scooping them all up and putting them into bags. But with the help of my friend Brennan, boxing them up and then dumping the boxes into the bags and scooping everything, after about an hour we got most of it cleaned up, and then we scooped the rest into this bag like this, and also picked a lot up by hand. And the rest is completely 100% biodegradable. I will be storing all of this. So one day I decided to see how much a pawn shop would give me for my rubber band ball. So I got in my car and drove out to one, but it was closed for another 30 minutes. So I waited, ate a burrito, and then went back in and said, I got this rubber band ball that I want to sell for $200.
Why do you think it's worth $200?
I put a lot of time into it. It's a lot of rubber bands.
How many rubber bands are in there?
Like 14 bags.
How many is in a bag?
I have no idea. But it weighs 6.5 pounds.
Wow, does it bounce? Wow, it bounces pretty good. Well, how old are you?
16.
You gotta be 18 before you can do anything with it.
And then he said he'd give me $100 for it if I counted all the rubber bands and had someone 18 sell it for me. So I thought about it and said, 200.
No, I can't go 200 on it, but it'd be worth just watching you count that many rubber bands for $100.
500.
I couldn't get $500 out of a rubber ball.
How much do you think you could sell this for?
$50.
I'm gonna have to walk.
All right. Appreciate you coming in.
So then I walked out with my rubber band ball, and I guess I'm just gonna have to keep adding bands.
So one day, after 2 years of taking this tiny rubber band ball that grew really big to the pawn shop guy to see what it would give me, and a bunch of other random stuff that most of the time didn't work out, I'm here to surprise the pawn guy with his very own tiny rubber band ball to pawn. This is how he reacted.
What's up, Dylan?
I have a new ball.
It's a nice little round ball.
I'm not trying to sell it or sell anything.
Really? What brings you in then?
Just wanted to give you this ball.
Sweet.
A gift, and a thank you for being in all my videos.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, so you
Appreciate
can put it on one of these shelves and try to sell
I
it.
then told him I wanted him to try to pawn it and see how much he could get for
How
it.
much you think you want to get out of it? How about $99.99? Let's find a spot to put
And
it.
he actually had the perfect spot for it. Follow along to see how much it goes for. Full vid, link in bio.
One day I decided to take 2 gold chains, 1 fake, 1 kind of real, flex tape, a giant water balloon, and a giant rubber band ball back to the pawn shop. Got doubled up in the chains.
Yeah.
I brought the rubber band ball in again. I just wanted you to see how big it is. I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on a price.
Big. Wow.
And I started off with this. With this giant water balloon. This is pretty special. It can hold a lot of water, and it's really big. I asked him what he thought he could give me, and he
You ever
said,
filled it up?
yeah. He said he'd do 5, but I thought that was way too low, so then I got out. Genuine flex tape from Phil Swift himself.
It work good?
Yeah.
Is that flex tape strong enough to lift that ball?
And I didn't know, so we decided to test it. We put it on the ball, he picked it up, and it didn't work. So then I got out the 2 chains. Tell me what you think each one of them's worth. He looked at him and said,
This one I think you stole off your curtains.
and then he went and did an acid test on the other one and said it basically it was just gold plated, which is what I thought anyway, so I just kept it, and then I left. Full vid will be on my YouTube. So one day, someone on my Instagram gave me the idea to build a trampoline out of my giant rubber bands that I used for my giant rubber band ball. And my first attempt was pretty bad. I couldn't figure out the tightness it needed, but eventually I got it, and then I took a big strand and wrapped them all the way around this thing like this. But it wasn't tight enough, so I made this X thing, and it was even more bouncy, and it was time to test it out. I made a cool hammock, I could step over it and throw shovels on it. And this tire, and this rubber band ball, just kidding. I tried to surf on it, and then went to Walmart to get a watermelon, soda, and some plates to throw on it. And the watermelon ended up being too heavy to bounce on it, so I moved on to the root beer, and it wouldn't explode, so I took it outside to do it. It launched pretty decently, and then I threw the plate, and it didn't break at first, but the second throw it shattered. So I threw it again, broke some bands, and then I just kind of went ham on some stuff. So this is part 2 of getting kicked out for dyeing my parents' pool red. After getting kicked out and turning this storm shelter into my new home, you guys commented saying that I should turn it into a gaming setup. And so today, to make the most out of living in here, that's what I'm gonna do. I came out of the storm cellar and then went to sneak back in to grab a TV and an Xbox. I stole this TV out of the spare bedroom and took it back to the storm shelter, and then I went back to grab this Xbox and Minecraft. And lastly, I just needed power, so I got multiple extension cords and hooked it up until I had my Xbox. I loaded an old world I hadn't played in forever, and I was actually playing Minecraft in the cellar. Let me know what else I should try. So I've been making this rubber band ball for a long time, and it's now part 30. And I ordered another pack of these big rubber bands and placed the entire pile. And after I was done with that, I got the pile of even more of these big colored rubber bands than I did last time. And when I was done with that, the ball was looking pretty good at 76 pounds. I took it out to the street, picked it up, and threw it the best I could, and then tried again. And I ended up just laying on it and then standing on it. So like if you want me to keep on going. So one day, a while back, after bringing my rubber band ball to this pawn shop guy for a long time, I decided to surprise him with his own rubber band ball.
Sweet. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
This was about 6 months ago, and I told him he should put it up here and try to sell it for some money. And it's sat here for months until the other day when this guy came in.
Hey, what's up, Dr. Phil from Roper Kia? What's going on?
Oh, I'm living my best life. How
Good
are
to
you?
see you.
My kids are driving me nuts. There's
Okay.
some kid named Dylan off of TikTok who has these rubber band balls.
Oh, yeah. I got one. He gave me one last time he came in. That's
Oh
it
my
right there.
gosh, this thing's heavy.
Oh, yeah. It's heavy.
This is it?
Check it out. It even bounces.
How much you want for it?
For $140, you can have that ball.
Sign me up.
Sweet. You got a deal.
20.
That's it. Perfect.
140.
Appreciate it, sir.
Yes, sir. Boom! Got the
And this
ball.
guy walked off with the ball forever. So I'm now to part 26 of making this giant rubber band ball, and I'm gonna keep on going. I ordered these bigger rubber bands on Amazon, and they weren't as small as the last ones, but they were still really hard to stretch around the ball. And I dumped them all out into a pile and placed it. And it was harder to place than any other pile I've ever placed. And it was exhausting, so I left and came back the next day to place 2 more packs of them. And I placed that pile, and it now weighs 61 pounds. I took it downstairs and compared it to this ball, then threw it, and then stood on it, kinda. More like sat on it. Anyway, like if you want me to keep on going. So I'm now to part 37 of this giant rubber band ball. And it's getting pretty giant, but everyone still wants it to be bigger. So I ordered more rubber bands, dumped them into a pile, and started placing. And then this happened because it's getting hard to place them. But I kept on going, finishing the pile, and then I took a break and went outside to play with the ball in the snow. And there wasn't much snow, but I made as big a snowball as I could, set it on the rubber band ball, and then crushed it. And then I came back to place another pile. I dumped it out, and then I placed it a little bit differently this time. I just threw all the bands on the ball. Bam. Magic. And the ball actually broke the scale, and the scale won't read anymore, so I don't know how much it weighs, but I took it out of the coal sack, and it's just pretty heavy. So, like if you want me to keep on going. So you guys keep wanting me to add way more rubber bands to this giant rubber band trampoline I've been working on. So that was the plan. I was going to add even more rubber bands. But as soon as we got started, we noticed an issue. The metal was literally bending, and I was scared it was going to break, and I didn't want that to happen. So I bounced on it a few more times with my brother like this. We went really low, and then we started just disassembling the entire trampoline. It was really sad, but I didn't want it to hurt us, and the trampoline was fun while it lasted. Comment anything else we should turn this trampoline into, but now it's a trampoline. So one day someone commented to try to sand my aluminum foil ball down and try to make it more round. So I got out a mallet to first shape it best I could, and it wasn't working very well, so then I decided to try a comment I saw putting it in the dryer to make it more round. And it sounded really loud and scary, so I took it out. Yeah, don't try that at home. And then I tried throwing the ball and even rolling it around. And when that failed, I got out the metal hammer, which does that to it. And I just focused my hitting in one spot to try to see how smooth I could get it, and it was pretty smooth compared to the other side. I tried my best to round out the rest of the ball and then got out this sand, and it sanded pretty sort of smooth, and it looked decently round, but got my fingers dirty. And with a little bit more of the hammer, the ball is overall way more round. Like if I should make it even rounder with rubber bands. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it, and also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell. Then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home. But first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience, and when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So one day it was rubber band ball part 44, and first I had to get the ball out of the zip line. I got it out, and then I had to carry it all the way upstairs. I made it up, and then I took it to the room where I placed all my bands and got to place them. I placed the entire pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands for quite a while until I was done, and I carried it all the way downstairs and weighed it in at like 164 pounds. Then I took it out to the street and just look at it. It's massive. Can't pick it up. I just can kick it. Like if you want me to keep on going. So as you probably know, I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and I needed more rubber bands, so I went to Walmart. But they were out of the ones I needed, so I went to a different Walmart and they had some. Then I went home, dumped them all out, and got busy. And sped up, this all just looks really cool. Anyway, I finished that pile and took a break and came back later to finish this bag I ordered. And sadly, it's a lot less colorful now. But I'm done, and it now weighs 28.3 pounds and bounces decently. And I also made a basket. Like if I should keep going. So one day, to find out if there's really still watermelon trapped inside my giant rubber band ball, I made another rubber band ball with a watermelon. My goal was to cut it open after adding a bunch of bands to it and making it perfectly round, and then find out if there was watermelon inside. I made it into a ball like this, tested how bouncy it was, threw it in a pool, and apparently rubber band balls sink. So we got it out and then tried to cut it open with this, a sword, this saw, then these big lawn scissors, but nothing was working until I got this box knife. Don't try this at home, but eventually we got it all the way unraveled. And after making it completely to the center, I only saw tiny crumbs of watermelon. So one day someone commented that I need to put more coats of Flex Seal on the egg. So I Flex Sealed another egg and then put another coat on the other side. And after that I let it dry, then put another coat on. And then put another coat on. And then put one last coat on. And it was done and seemed pretty sturdy, so I tested it from a waist-high drop, and it held up pretty well. So I went a little higher, and it seemed a little bit mushed in. So I threw it up in the air, and then it was like completely mushed in. So I just threw it up one more time for the heck of it. and it was crushed. So one day someone said I should try to go to the pawn shop again, so I'm going to take my rubber band ball, this chain, and some other stuff. I put the ball in my car and then got my bling on and then went inside the pawn shop and said,
"What's going on?" I'm back. Got a few more things.
Okay, what you got today?
Bling on this
Wow,
time.
that's blingy.
First off, I got this tiny rubber band ball.
Is this an offspring of that one?
Sure, yeah.
Having babies? What's up with that?
Want to buy it?
I then told him I wanted $50 for it, and he said,
$50 for $5 worth of rubber bands? Better pass on that one.
so I then threw it and got out my genuine gold watch.
Gold watch.
And he didn't seem to think it was gold.
You got screwed.
Walmart, what a ripoff.
They do that to a lot of people.
Probably explains why it was like $10.
And after that, I got out my chain and said it was probably
This much
worth...
gold's probably worth about $30K.
He looked at me like I was crazy and then weighed it.
90 grams.
Is that a lot?
No.
Oh.
And he ended up passing on the chain, so I got out the rubber band ball. It was 80 pounds last time I brought it in, and now over 100.
You're a lot stronger than you look.
It would take a lot for me to let this thing go. What's your best offer?
You got $150 for it.
And I knew I couldn't do it. So I threw the ball down and headed out, knowing I'll probably never sell it. So I'm now all the way to part 27 of my rubber band ball, and I need more bands. So I ordered these big rubber bands and started placing them. And these bands are really hard to place, so this was really exhausting. So I took a break and then came back later to place these colored rubber bands and make it look good. I placed the entire pile, and it now weighs 65 pounds. I let it roll out to the cul-de-sac, picked it up, threw it down, then tried to stand on it, then threw it again, and then my brother tried to stand on it. And if you want me to keep on going. So it's rubber band ball part 73, and I about knocked over a fan with it and struggled to make it over to the scale, but weighed it in at 800 pounds. But we're going to add even more bands. And the ball still looks kind of broken, so hopefully after we place all these bands, it looks a lot neater. And the ball is finally getting close to 1,000 pounds, which is what the scale maxes out at. And we kept turning the ball to make it as round as possible. And after a long while of placing bands, we were finished. And the ball does look a lot neater. I jumped on it like this. Then it accidentally moved the couch when I was trying to make it over to the scale. Brendan tried pushing it on, but failed alone. So we both had to push it, and it weighed 829 pounds. I then pushed it off and took it outside to show the cows. Yeah, they thought it was pretty cool. Like if I should keep on going. So it's part 104 of building my 1,800-pound rubber band ball. And today, instead of just looping rubber bands, my brother and I decided to try and build the world's biggest rubber band. We made it super long enough to span across the street several times. Here it is all the way around, me speeding past it. Yeah, it's really long. I put it all in my car and then took it back home to place on the rubber band ball, which didn't take very long. And bam, just like that, 50 pounds of rubber bands on my ball. So everyone wants an update on the giant rubber band ball that started from a watermelon. It's now 1,700 pounds and I haven't worked on it in a while. I broke this glass thing trying to move it to the center of my garage to work on it because we have a ton more bands that we're going to use to place on the ball. We're going to be placing 25 pounds of bands in one sitting by looping them all into 2 separate strands like this. It takes quite a while to loop them all into strands, but it's pretty satisfying to watch. The bands just disappear until we got 2 giant piles. Look at it. And the ball is still a long ways away from the world record of 9,000 pounds. So let me know if you really want me to keep at this ball and try to break it. Because we still have so many more boxes of bands and more on the way. So if you want me to keep going. So one day someone commented to drop my rubber band ball from somewhere high. And I don't live anywhere where I can really do that because it weighs 65 pounds and could hurt someone. So I took it to this abandoned race car track, took it to the 2nd story, and dropped it. And it bounced and then just rolled into the ground. And I was like, I got to do something else. So I went down to this pipe and I'm like, can I put it in there? So I looked and it just gradually got smaller. So my ball would have got stuck. Glad I didn't do that. But I just ended up throwing it off and it bounced off into the fence. And it got this mark on it. Oh well, let me know what else I should do with my rubber band ball. So one day I ordered a human-sized hamster ball to run in the creek with. I took it outside, unboxed it, and unfolded it. I then plugged the air pump in and turned it on. And while it was filling up, I pulled all the folds out to make sure it filled up all the way. It was done, and I rolled it out to the grass and unzipped it, and all the air came out.
Air pump.
Yeah, I felt pretty dumb, but then I took it to my brother's truck to take to the creek. We got there, and I drank the bang to have energy like a hamster. I got in the ball, and my brother started filling it up. It was pretty neat from the inside, and I liked the air. And then it was done, and I ran towards the creek.
Follow you.
I got in the water.
Whoa!
For part 2. So one day my friend invited me to see this cave deep inside their backyard. It was so crazy and it gave me the idea to put a gaming setup down there and play Minecraft inside a real cave. So I bought all the supplies necessary to make this possible. Then we put a ladder deep inside the cave and it was time to explore and find the perfect spot for my setup. When I got down inside the cave, it was insane. There was 2 tunnels on both sides I could go down. I went down this one, which led to this little opening where these stalagmites were that are supposed to be over 1,000,000 years old. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. So stay tuned for when we play Minecraft inside this cave. So one day I wanted to turn my brother's truck into a pool to drive down the road in. So I went to Walmart to get a blow-up pool to put in the truck bed. I got one, and then I also got a pool noodle. After that, we saw a pool that was actually designed for trucks, so we got that instead. And we got a donut and a water gun, and then we left. I walked out, went home, and then placed it in my brother's truck. Then I got my air pump and started airing it up. And after that was done, I got the hose and started filling it all up with water. It took quite a while, and while we filled it up, we simultaneously added hot tub water to make it less cold. Then I took the hose out, added one last bucket of hot tub water, and I was done. And I was just chilling on the floaty, and now my brother's going to drive down the road. Full vid will be on my YouTube at Dylan Ayres. One day I had Purple send me a mattress to test their famous raw egg test. They basically slam a bunch of eggs on the mattress and no matter what, it won't break the egg. Inside the mattress was these mini mattresses that were super stretchy because that's what they're made of. Then this mask, I opened up the mattress, unrolled it, cut open the plastic, and it aired up. It was pretty comfy. I was actually super impressed by the comfort. My dog even liked it. I had all these eggs to put it to the test. I first crushed one with the mini mattresses like that, and then I threw one at the mattress, tried to push on it, fall on it, and it just wouldn't break. So I tried on the couch as well, and it still wouldn't break. And even the rubber band ball wouldn't crush it. So then I tested the eggs, make sure they were still good. Yeah, they break. So I just chucked them as far as I could, both at the mattress and the couch. They bounced off, and then I tried the 3-egg drop test thing. I fell flat on my back eventually, like that, and the eggs were perfectly fine, even after I fell like this. So I resorted to the 1,000-pound rubber band ball, which actually crushed them. And I was like, I'm going to take this cover off and see what's inside the mattress now. And it was actually pretty cool. I ripped this thing open, which I don't think you're supposed to do, but it felt really cool. Look at it. And it even holds the egg like this. Pretty cool mattress. So one day I rolled my rubber band ball back upstairs because I'm now at part, 42. It weighs 123 pounds, and I dumped out 3 more bags, which is 15-ish pounds or something like that. And me and my brother got to placing them. And this was the most amount of bands I've ever placed, so we took a break and took it out to the snow. And I made a snowball, then threw it at it, and then rolled it around in the snow, rolled it over this hill, and then picked it up and dropped it. Then the next day I got back to placing, which was a huge pile that took me a long time to place, but I got it. And the ball was a bit deformed afterwards, but it's okay. It weighs 139 pounds now, and just look at it next to my head, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I wanted to spend a day in my kangaroo shoes that are supposed to make you run really fast and jump really high. They're really hard to balance on, so this is going to be hard. I tried to pick up this basketball but fell into my ball pit, so I had to scooch all the way over to the couch to get myself up. And I was up. I then did some more everyday tasks like throwing away the trash, going upstairs, which was very hard, and using the bathroom, which was hard too. Just kidding. I washed my hands, and then I had to go downstairs by scooching, and then I decided to take my dog on a walk. It was pretty good at first. She enjoyed it. Here I am running back, her following along, and then I slipped on ice almost. I tried to relax in him for a bit and watch this awesome rubber band ball guy, and then I went to the gym where I was going to get a sick workout with my kangaroo shoes. I had to have someone hand me the dumbbells because I couldn't bend over, and then I did some more curls, some pull-ups, some leg raises, and then I jumped down and was feeling good and motivated, so I decided to try to hit 2 plates. I went down and, was stuck. But no worries, I just got up and walked off in my kangaroo shoes.
It's officially part 99 of my giant rubber band ball, and this is 50 more pounds of rubber bands that we're about to add on to the ball. We start by looping all the bands together like this, which is the longest part. We sit there for what feels like an eternity, just looping band after band after band until the pile is completely empty. We're almost to rubber band ball part 100, which is crazy, and for part 100 we're going to be placing 100 pounds on the rubber band ball. And we finished up these two 25-pound strands like this until the ball was finished. Weighing literally 1,600 pounds, it almost took out my tripod.
So one day last year when it was freezing, I tried to freeze these giant water balloons. And this year it's even more cold, so I got these 4 24-inch water balloons I'm also going to be trying to freeze overnight. I started by trying to thaw the hose to make sure the water would clearly move through, and then let this balloon fill all the way up and zip tied it in the freezing cold. Then we just had to do one more balloon for safety to make sure we got one that would actually freeze, and they both filled up like this. Then it was just time to wait overnight. We came back and one of them kind of broke and looked like this, so we just started smashing it for the funsies. Smashing ice is one of the most satisfying things. Then stabbing this frozen pool, moving on the pool, and opening this one. It went everywhere. So one day I ordered another huge giant dome like the one that I previously filled with water, and I put it on my trampoline to air up and see what it would be like. We got everything together and then began airing up the dome. The dome completely aired up on the trampoline, and it was just one big bubble tent thing. It kind of reminded me of my giant hamster ball, but even bigger. I bounced around and made the whole dome bounce up and down on the trampoline. Then I started running in circles, spinning the dome every which way. And here's what it looked like from inside the bubble. It reminded me from something in a cartoon. I then realized I could stand up and walk in the bubble like a hamster ball, so I started spinning around and then bouncing some more, and then I decided to run off the trampoline and run around in the yard, which felt really crazy and looked pretty insane. So let me know what else I should do in this ball. So one day I had the idea to fill my giant hamster ball completely up with Orbeez. The first step was filling the hamster ball up with water. I let it fill to a good amount I thought would absorb all the Orbeez we bought. And then I just opened it up and started pouring the Orbeez and kicking it to try to mix it all up. And I was pretty excited to get in the next day once the Orbeez were bigger, but I came back and it wasn't enough Orbeez, so I bought way more and filled the entire thing up with 500,000 Orbeez. And now all I have to do is wait for the Orbeez to absorb all the water and I'll be swimming in it tomorrow, so stay tuned. So one day, after everyone kept commenting, telling me to take my 1,000-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like I did a year ago when it was only 100 pounds, I finally went back and showed the man a picture.
Wow, that looks like a wrecking ball.
Now weighs over 1,000 pounds. Should you look at it tomorrow?
And I convinced him to come out to my warehouse tomorrow morning to tell me what he thought it was worth. So the next day, he came out.
Dylan?
There he is. Here's the ball.
That is
Everyone's
one
been
big
wanting
ball.
you to see it for a long time. Last time I brought it in the store, like only 100 pounds. Now it's 10 times the size.
Wow.
Try to move it.
There's one big ball.
I let him move it around, and then I pushed it down to show him just how heavy it actually is.
It's like a wrecking ball.
Have you thought about maybe selling it to a wrecking ball company?
I think it's like worth more and it's like artness.
How much you want for
I thought about the price and then told him how much I had in bands
Probably a
alone.
few thousand in the rubber bands.
500 wouldn't buy it?
Wouldn't be worth
We can
it.
load it up if you want to sell
I
it.
think I'm just gonna have to pass and beat the world record, but
Okay.
He didn't go high enough on the ball, so I just showed him some other stuff in the shop, including this ball and this aluminum foil ball.
That's a lot of foil.
And I said he could have the aluminum ball for 100, but he said that wouldn't be a good return. So one day, after freezing a giant water balloon and it being hollow, people wanted me to do it bigger and better. And it was going to get colder, so I'm gonna. I let it fill up for even longer this time. And I was also going to let it sit for even longer. I zip-tied it shut, and then let it sit and came back the next day to check it out. And I could stand on it. It was pretty frozen. We gave it another day, and then came back out again. And the balloon had popped somehow, but the ice was still rock solid, and I could stand on it, kinda. I ripped the balloon off, then pushed it over, and it did that. And I threw the ice, and it was really, really strong. It's pretty thick ice. So one day I decided to go to Walmart and get a can of Flex Seal and a few sheets of cardboard, and then I headed home to build a cardboard boat. I had the stuff and I was ready to build. I cut the sheets so I could form them into a boat. I then took my duct tape and I duct taped all around it. I then flipped it over and duct taped that side. I got the base for the boat and positioned it in. I put some duct tape on it, flipped it over again, and put another piece of cardboard on it for support. Now it was ready for the Flex Seal, so I took it to my backyard to be sprayed. I sprayed all around the seams and in every corner until I was done and ready to test it in the creek. Like for part 2. So one day I was dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball off a bucket lift, and I had some cool stuff to drop on it, including an inflatable pool, an air mattress, and a giant water balloon. I started with this, and it did that. Here's the underwater slow-mo. It hit the water so hard it did this to the ball. Then I got out the air mattress and dropped it on it as well, and it didn't even pop. Look at it. But it did lose some bands when it dropped. So then I tried again with the pineapple on it, but I missed the pineapple. Then I did the water balloon, and it completely smashed it. Here's the slow-mo. And then it rolled off and went into the woods, and it just kept going down this very steep hill. Like if you want to see how I get it out. So as you know, I have this giant rubber band ball, but now I want to make a little rubber band ball to show you how. I first wadded up a clump of bands, and then wrapped them around each other until I had this. And then I started doubling up bands and adding them to the clump for a while until I had this. And after that, I just kept on going until I got to this. And it's pretty neat and bouncy. I went on for quite a while after this until it looked like this. And it's pretty cool and weighs a lot less than my other one, weighing 0, and this one weighing 28. And it's not even close to the size of my head. Here's me throwing the big one, and now here's me throwing the small one. Now a basket with the small one, a basket with the big one, eventually. And throwing the big one, and throwing the small one. I had to run after it. Yeah, they're both pretty cool. So I'm now on part 21 of this rubber band ball, and no one ever seems to want me to stop, so I went to Walmart and bought all the colored rubber bands they had. Then I went home and started out with the bag I ordered on Amazon, and I placed that entire pile. And then I took a break, as usual, and came back to place all the colored rubber bands. And I dumped them all out into a pile, and then placed it all, which took quite a while, but I finished, and it now weighs 45 pounds. Could probably take me out, and I broke my already broken basketball goal with it. But hey, I can stand on it. And like if you want me to keep going. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 41, and my 25 pounds of rubber bands got here, so I took it upstairs along with my giant rubber band ball. I took it all to the room where I placed the bands, and then I threw that in a package and opened it up. And each bag weighed 5 pounds. I dumped them all out, and the bands were pretty good. So I dumped out 10 pounds of bands and got to placing. And it was a lot, so I had my brother help me with this one. And we were going for so long, my phone even cut out because it ran out of storage. But we finished eventually and then took it downstairs. I got it all the way down and then weighed it in at 123 pounds. I took it outside and just look at it next to a wheel and next to my head. And here's my best effort at trying to pick it up. I can barely do it anymore. Let me know what else I should do with this ball. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and I'm just going to keep adding rubber bands every time Walmart restocks. So I went there, got a few more bags of colored rubber bands, then went home and started with the 2 bags I ordered on Amazon. I placed the entire pile until you couldn't see a colored rubber band in sight. And then I left and came back later to place the colored rubber bands I got at Walmart. And I placed it until I was done. It's huge and now weighs almost 26 pounds, is super hard to throw and really hard to catch, but I can still make a basket with it and even stand on it now. Well, kinda. Like if you think I should keep going. So I've been making this rubber band ball for way longer than I thought I'd be, and I'm just gonna keep going. So I went to Walmart and they were out of rubber bands, so I left and came back a few days later and they had some. I went home, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And it's honestly just so satisfying to watch the pile go down. And when I was done, I left and came back later with a new bag that I ordered on Amazon. And the band seemed good, so I placed the entire pile until I was done. And it now weighs 23.6 pounds, is way bigger than my head, and it's really hard to throw, and even harder to make a basket with. But I made one. Like if I should keep going. So one day I decided to fill up a giant hamster ball with ball pit balls in it up with water. So I got in, let it air up, and then began filling it up with water. The water shocked me at first, and then I just let it fill up and stopped it before it got too heavy. I then laid in it for a second. It was pretty cool. And then I got up and went off, and fell pretty hard. And after that, I got up and fell again. But I went out, and then decided to lay down and put my face underwater. Then I just chilled in it. It's pretty nice. I walked around for a bit, went out into the yard, slid in the balls, and then did a cannonball. And after all that, I decided to get out. Let me know what else I should do with it. So after testing the circle of salt around a Tesla trend and finding out it doesn't really work, people were still commenting wanting me to put the salt 4 feet away, all the way around the Tesla. So we have a bunch more salt and we measured 4 feet on each tire, marked a little bit of salt, and then started pouring it all the way around the Tesla like this, making thick lines and then even a dashed line all the way around that line. And it was now time to find out if the Tesla would be put to a stop. I got in and drove straight over the salt, and then I put it in reverse and autopilot. So after testing the Tesla salt trend multiple times and having it never work, I had one more trick up my sleeve. I bought this spray chalk and I was going to trick the Tesla by making these fake lines. The spray chalk makes the lines look exactly like road lines, and I just drew one big box all the way around the Tesla till I ran out and had to use pink. Got it on my hand too. But then it was just finally time to test it out and see if it would work. The car detected my brother, but no lines, so I just backed all the way up and accidentally hit my dad's mailbox. And he was kind of upset. Comment anything else I should try. So it's part 2 of trying to play Minecraft deep inside a real-life cave. In my last video, we explored the cave, but today we're going to put the entire gaming setup down there. First, we had to run this extension cord 500 feet from the cave to this shed, plug it in, and then started putting stuff in this backpack to lower it all the way down into the cave. It was a process, slowly lowering all the devices down into the cave to complete the setup. Once everything was down there, it was time to test out the electricity, and it actually worked, kind of shockingly. We were literally going to be the first people ever to play Minecraft inside a real cave. I hooked it all up, plugged everything in, and it was on. I just logged into Minecraft on my old account on the Xbox 360, and it was running. We had Minecraft in a real cave. So then I just did the only logical thing and started cave mining. Let me know what else we should try. Full videos on my YouTube. So it's now part 23, and I'm really starting to think it's never going to end. But that's okay. I went to Walmart and, bought a bunch of colored rubber bands, then went home, dumped them all out into a nice pile. And then I started placing them, and it's to the point now where the bands sometimes break and it hurts. I took a break, as usual, and came back to place this bag I ordered on Amazon. And I placed it, and the ball now weighs over 51 pounds. Could probably kill a bear, and is no longer a good basketball. More like a chair. Here's it next to a basketball. And here's my trick chat. Ooh. Like if I should keep on going. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and people seem to never want me to stop. So I went to Walmart, got a bunch more rubber bands, and then went home to start placing them. I dumped out the little bags first and began placing all of those until I was done, which took a while. Then I left and came back later to place all of the colored rubber bands, which took even longer, but now it looks pretty. I left again and came back to place the last bag of thicker rubber bands, and it was finally done. And it now weighs 17.5 pounds, is bigger than my head, and is pretty hard to catch when you bounce it. And now it's noticeably bigger than a basketball, like if you want me to continue this ball. So one day I ordered 6 giant bags of packing peanuts to completely fill up my storm shelter with them. And this is the inside of the storm shelter we're going to completely fill with all these bags. I started out with 2 to see what it would look like, added them all in until eventually it looked like this. I then dropped the 3rd in and it kind of covered the camera. I went searching for it, found it, but here it is. It's already really full. It was crazy inside, really warm and kind of cozy. Here's me and what it looks like inside, and then it was time to add more. This is double. I got in, splashed around, and it was like 4 feet of just straight packing peanuts. I dove in like this, then tried to completely bury myself in them and hide like this. I was kind of peeking out, then I did that, and then I went even further in. I then shut the door. It was really cool. Comment any other ideas you have for the storm shelter. So one day I filled this pull-up with Orbeez in my last video, and then people wanted me to add more. And so I did. I bought like a few million more, added a bunch more water, then came back the next day, and it looked like this. And the Orbeez were a lot less watered down this time. It was just solid Orbeez for days. And when I would fall in it, I basically just got stuck, and then I tried to swim like this. Then threw some Orbeez at the camera, and tried to get on this floaty, and then skateboarded this little rubber band ball into the pool. Then I tossed it way up in the air to see what the splash would look like, and here's the slow-mo. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should fill this car with Orbeez. So one day I bought a tiny inflatable bouncy house to float down the creek in. It was pretty bouncy and seemed like it would make a pretty good boat. I flipped inside of it like this, and then it was time to test it out. We took it to the creek, walked it all the way down over a bunch of rocks and stuff. I jumped in and I was off. I did it. I was floating down the creek in a miniature bouncy house. I bet my parents are proud. My goal was to make it all the way to the stronger current over here, but I got stuck, so I had to push it out. But after that, I was flying. The bouncy house was moving so fast. Then we approached this fallen tree that I actually made it through. And the bouncy house was a success. Comment what else I should try. Part 2 of putting a hamster ball in the creek. Don't try this at home or anywhere. So I walked in and it was pretty strong and started to carry me away. It was pretty neat in there, but when I tried to stand up and run, I just fell. So I laid down and then I got back up and tried again. But yeah, it never worked. So I just chilled and let the current take me, and then we came to this bridge thing and my brother and my dad stopped me. But I couldn't quite run up to land, and it was kind of a problem. And then some other people helped push, and I made it up and ran off. And then my brother unzipped me.
Good job, Jack. Whoa, my ears popped.
One day, a while back, I tried to smash this giant water balloon with my giant 1,700-pound rubber band ball, but failed until the small rubber band ball took it out. Today, I have another giant water balloon, and I'm going to see what all random items I can use to try and break it. I got a llama, a watermelon, a pumpkin, and a bunch of other random junk, and then started filling the balloon all the way up like this. Eventually, the balloon was full, and it was time to test it out with the plunger, which didn't break, but it did suction. Then this llama that just broke. I then threw the pumpkin that surprisingly didn't do anything, and this tiny rubber band ball, and this water balloon. Then my watermelon didn't do anything either and was perfectly intact. The balloon was holding up really well, so I threw this hoverboard at it, and then I broke out the shovel. Yeah, like this video if you want to see me try with the giant rubber band ball again. So it's now part 47 of the giant rubber band ball. I let it hit a ramp and then got out 25 pounds of bands, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And this was a lot of bands, the most I've ever placed. So I thought, how could I do this more efficiently? And I had the idea, pay someone. So I paid 2 friends that day to finish up this pile. And they got busy placing a lot of bands while I watched occasionally and then switched in and out even once. But then they kept going until eventually they had a much smaller pile left and just threw that pile on and it was done. And it now weighs 213 pounds. And I also decided to spray paint it because I saw a comment that told me to. Like if I should keep going. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball for quite a while now, and I'm out of rubber bands, so I went to Walmart, and they had so many colored rubber bands. I got them and then went back to carry even more and then left. I went home and started with this pack I ordered, and I placed the entire pile. And done. And then I took a break and came back later with all the colored rubber bands. I dumped them all out into a pile, which was a lot, and got busy placing them for what felt like an eternity, because this is probably the biggest pile I've ever placed. And it's huge. It now weighs 30 pounds, is way bigger than my head, is pretty hard to throw, and almost impossible to make a basket with, and I can even stand on it. Like if you think I should keep going. So one day I got an air mattress, some cardboard, some tape, and I started making a cardboard boat. I started by taping one sheet of cardboard on the edge, and then I added another sheet on the end and taped it down. After that I added one last edge piece and taped it down all around. Then it was done. And I picked it up and put it in my brother's truck, and we headed down to the creek and carried it down to go test it.
Dylan, let's just sail off right there.
I put it in the water, and then I got in and started rowing. And I rowed out decently far.
Dylan?
But any further, I was headed for a current, so I made my way back. And then we both got in to sail, like for part 2. So I'm now to part 25 of this giant rubber band ball, and everyone just wants more and more and more. So I ordered these new rubber bands on Amazon, and they were way too small. So I got sad, and then I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of colored rubber bands, and then went home. Then I, dumped them out into a pile and started placing them, which took longer than usual for some reason. But I finished, then took a break and came back later to place these other colored rubber bands I ordered. I placed that entire pile, and the ball kind of looks like Spider-Man now. And weighs 57 pounds. I took it downstairs and outside, then threw it and sat on it, and it's also way bigger than my head, and I can stand on it. So, if you want me to keep going.
So one day, people commented on my last TikTok telling me to go dumpster diving and take whatever I find to the pawn shop. And I wasn't really finding anything, went to this bookstore, didn't find any books. Then I went to this dumpster, hopped in, and started digging around until eventually, after hours of dumpster diving, I found a Star Wars Pez dispenser that I took to the pawn shop. I walked in the store and he said,
What in the world is that?
I've had this for a very long time. One of a kind Star Wars Pez dispenser.
Wow, that is pretty cool. No candy in it. You eat all the candy? It's worthless.
You just gotta buy the candy. I mean, it's a collectible. And then he asked me how much.
What do you think it might be worth?
$30.
How long have you had it?
Like, years.
Oh, is it like this one?
Then he started comparing it to ones on eBay.
Pez dispenser. You sure you didn't buy this on eBay for 99 cents?
That one looks different. I then did my best to convince him the true value of it.
I'd probably give you 50 cents because I think it's kind of cool.
And I knew I had to do it. He gave me the 50 cents and I used half of it for these Skittles. I was a winner after all.
I got my money back.
So one day someone commented that I should cover my rubber band ball in Flex Seal, and seeing as I broke it and it needed a little bit of fixing because there's glass shards on it, I thought, why not? So I rolled it out to my yard and started spraying it. I sprayed all around it until it was done. Actually, I gave it a little bit more and then let it sit. And the next day I came back and it had rained, but it was still solid compared to the side that wasn't Flex Sealed. I picked it up and took it out to the cul-de-sac and it bounced the same and was just kind of stale. I rolled it into the basketball goal. Boom. Then stood on it, and let me know what else I should do. Rubber band ball part 9. So a lot of people don't know that it started when this watermelon exploded and left me with this wad of rubber bands. And ever since then, I've just been adding on to it, and this is the entire compilation up until now. And I needed more colored rubber bands, so I went to Walmart, but they were out. So I got gas and went to a different Walmart. But they were out too, so I went to another one, and they finally had some. Then I went home, dumped out a bag, and then got busy placing the entire pile of rubber bands until I was done. And then I left and came back later. I dumped out the colored rubber bands and placed that entire pile. Then I found some more rubber bands in the floor, placed those, and then placed a bag of thicker rubber bands that I also found in the floor. And I was done. It now weighs 14.7 pounds, is the size of my head, and bounces pretty high. And it's also bigger than a basketball, like if you want me to keep going. So one day I went to Walmart and got a bunch of poster board and a roll of Gorilla Tape. And then I headed home to build a giant paper airplane. I started out by making a smaller version to test the material out, and it flew pretty well. Then I got out 4 sheets of poster board and taped them all together with the Gorilla Tape, and it was already turning out better than I thought it would. I then flipped it back over and folded the plane in half. After that, I started making all the folds necessary to make a paper airplane. And it was kind of hard to work with a material like this, but by taping it all, I kind of managed. I folded it in half, and then I made the wings. And after that, I taped up all the seams and the bottom of the plane for extra support. And it was done and ready to be thrown off a bridge, like for part 2. So one day you guys commented saying to put my girlfriend in my giant human hamster ball, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I aired her up.
Feels kind of hot in here.
And she was off.
Hey guys, I'm currently inside a giant hamster ball.
She just wandered around in it and then came back, and I tried to knock her over like this. And then I attempted to jump on the hamster ball, and it looked pretty funny actually. And then she just started running super fast away from me like this, but eventually came back and we both got in the hamster ball. It was the first time I've ever put 2 people in a hamster ball at one time, and it was kind of cool. We bounced it up and down like this, walked around some more, did some running, and fell and flipped like this. So one day I decided to get a snorkel and a towel and head down to the creek to look for treasure underwater. I set my stuff down, put my gear on, and then headed into the water. I looked around and found a rock. I kept looking with no luck, so then I put my phone on this thing to film underwater. And I kept scanning around underwater looking for stuff and eventually found this pair of sunglasses. Then I saw this flip-flop floating, and it was someone who was swimming over there, so I threw it to him. And then I began walking over to a deeper part of the creek to look for stuff. And I ended up taking off my snorkel because it was useless. Then I went back out, and after a while of looking, I found this pipe thingy. And I put it on my head as a necklace. And then I went back out, jumped in, and found this. Like for part 2.
So one day I wanted to recreate how I made my giant rubber band ball by putting a bunch of rubber bands around a bunch of random stuff. I got a basketball, glue, a piñata, and another watermelon. I started trying to bust the piñata with bands, but it failed. So I moved on to the big bottle of glue, just wrapping tons of bands around the glue until it would explode. Yeah, it looked pretty crazy. Then I moved on to the basketball, which began to get deformed. So I decided to throw it in the cul-de-sac to see if it would explode. And after multiple throws, nothing. And we still had one final thing in attempts of making another tiny rubber band ball. After a while, the bottom of the watermelon began to crack until eventually it just exploded. It exploded perfectly onto the chair, leaving behind this tiny little rubber band ball. Let me know what I should do with it.
So one day someone commented that I should fill my inflatable hamster ball up with all these packing peanuts that were in this room. So that's what I did. I then pushed it downstairs to get in and air it up. I got in, let it air up for a little bit, and then I got a snowball thrown at me, ow, and then I kept on airing it up until it was full. And it was really cool inside and soft. I splashed around all the packing peanuts, and then did a roll, and it didn't even hurt because all the packing peanuts cushioned my rolling. I then kept on rolling, and it looked like a popcorn machine. Here's the inside of it. And then me running as fast as I can and falling into the packing peanuts. Then I wanted to see if I could completely hide in the packing peanuts like this, and it worked. Here I am, though. I then ran a little bit more, got tired, and got out. Let me know what else I should try. So I've been making this giant rubber band ball, and it now weighs 8.2 pounds, but I want it bigger, so I went to Walmart, got a bunch more rubber bands, then went home, dumped them out, put some gloves on, then emptied out 2 bags of colored rubber bands, and got busy placing the entire pile. And after I finished the colored rubber bands, I dumped out 3 bags of normal rubber bands and placed that. I placed a bunch, but then left and came back the next day to place some more. It got tiring, and I placed a lot of rubber bands, so I left, took another break, and came back and started on it again. I was sure to place the whole bag this time, but I got too tired and had to leave and come back again the next day to finish it off. So that's what I did, and I finished it up. And it was done. It weighed 10 pounds, was bigger than my head, and bounced pretty high. Like if you want me to keep going.
So one day, after 2 years of taking this tiny rubber band ball to the pawn shop and a bunch of other random stuff, I was tired of being underpriced.
I don't think I'd give you $10 for it.
So I had a plan. I would stick it to the pawn shop and create my own pawn shop right in front of his, proving that all my stuff was really as valuable as I said it was. He was gonna regret rejecting all my offers. And now it was just time to sit there and wait for the customers to roll in.
This isn't going as planned.
And shortly later, the pawn guy came out.
Dude, what are you doing out here? Dylan's pawn?
I started my own pawn shop because you wouldn't buy anything from me.
Probably get arrested for not having a business license, tax license.
I didn't know what he was on about, so I just showed him my stuff.
Is this a new plunger?
A rubber band ball, my beautiful painting I made.
It's just as ugly as I remember it.
Got a Rubik's Cube.
It's not even solved.
Got this cool thing. It's like a punching bag.
You think you're going to be able to sell that?
I'm going to sell it for big money.
And just as I was done showing him my stuff, he said this.
I'm thinking you're probably going to have to pack up and leave.
You don't want me here?
I'd probably give you $20 just to leave. I'll be here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Part 2 of magnet fishing. So I pulled in the thing.
Dude, no way. It's a skateboard. How the heck did this get in there?
Then I went over to fish some more, and I saw this coin in the water and tried to get it.
Money ain't magnetic.
But my brother
Wait,
said,
what?
Money's not magnetic.
I felt pretty dumb, and then I splashed the water with the magnet, and then I went up with my skateboard. I tried to skate beside the side of the road, but I sucked because I've never really skated before.
They call me Tony Hawk. Ain't much to it, but to do it.
Then I took the board home and messed around with it. I tried to do lots of cool tricks. I kicked it, then I jumped on it, then I fell off, and then I threw it. So it's part 2 of filling my giant hamster ball up with 500,000 Orbeez and getting inside of it. We started pouring the Orbeez, then the next day poured even more Orbeez, and the next day it looked like this. And when I aired it up, it looked kind of weird, so I moved it over, washed it off, and then it was time for me to get in the hamster ball. I got in, aired up, and it was pretty cool. It was just a big pool of Orbeez inside a big dome. And the Orbeez were actually super soft. I splashed them all around, made waves in the Orbeez, spread them all around. Then I just started doing a bunch of random things like falling in the Orbeez, dumping them on my head, spinning around in circles, and trying to move the hamster ball, which didn't really work out, so then I just got out of the hamster ball and jumped on it. So one day I ordered an inflatable couch to float down the creek in. I unwrapped it and then let it air up and got on it. And then folded it into a couch and my dog got on it.
Then we took it outside, put it in my brother's truck, and went to the creek. I sat by the highway and then carried it all the way down over the rocks and out to the water and out to the launching point where I pushed off. And it worked really well and was amazing. I continued on and then decided to lay down and just enjoy the ride. And then I almost ran into a tree. And I kept going out even further and waved goodbye to my brother. And before you know it, I was just gone, out of sight of anything but the GoPro. But eventually I came back and dragged it all the way back to shore, up the rocks, and into the truck, and all the way home.
So one day I ordered this stuff called Great Stuff, which is basically expandable foam insulation. And my goal was to build a boat out of it. Not just any boat, a cardboard boat, because a while back I had a series on TikTok where I tried to make cardboard boats float, and I was never very successful. But I used the best cardboard boat design I knew how to make, and then I was going to cover the entire outside in the Great Stuff. And hopefully it'll float. So I finished taping up the entire bottom, like this. And I already had a decent looking boat. Then we covered the entire bottom in the Great Stuff. And then later we covered the rest of the sides. And when I came back the next day, it was solid looking. And it was ready to be tested in the creek. I walked it down and then got in. And I started to float away. It was working flawlessly without any problem. So I just kept on rowing and having a good time. And then I about ran into a tree. And then I started heading out further. And it was the best boat I'd ever made. I just kept going. So one day someone commented to use my waterproof spray on a cardboard boat. So I found this cardboard box and taped it up on all sides to seal it. Then I cut out a hole for me to sit in and then taped that. And then I started spraying all the waterproofing stuff. I sprayed it all around and on every single side until it was done. And then I let it sit overnight and came back the next day, put it in my brother's truck and took it on down to the creek. And when I put the box in the water, it was still dry. So I set it down, got in, and started rowing. And it was completely working. I went out under the bridge and then further and then just chilled for a second and kept on rowing. This was probably one of the best cardboard boats I've ever made. And I just kept on rowing forever.
So one day, a while back, I made this trampoline out of rubber bands. And it was really cool until we destroyed it like this and had to throw it away. But today I had the idea to recreate it with a big trampoline and even bigger rubber bands. We then got out a big pile of bands that we made into this giant loop and it wasn't really working. So I realized I had to create a bunch of different strands of bands that perfectly stretched across the trampoline, which was a process. We looped all these rubber bands and then took them to the trampoline and started placing them on. And after a little while and a lot of bands, I tried to get on it, but it wasn't ready yet. So we continued until we had all the rubber bands placed completely on the trampoline and then we tested it out. We couldn't believe it. It was actually holding us up perfectly, and it was super bouncy. It looked so cool underneath, and here's me on top of it. It felt like just a giant bouncy web. Then my girlfriend jumped on it and almost hit the bottom, and my brother almost fell through. So like if I should jump off the roof.
So one day I decided to take my giant 110-pound rubber band ball back to the abandoned water park that I took it to before to run down this slide back when it was 70 pounds. And last time we did it, people yelled at us, so we had to find the owner this time to get permission. And we found this house. It was right beside the park, so we knocked on the door and no one answered. So we kept looking around until these kids came up. They went and got their older brother and we asked him and he said,
A rubber band ball down a slide. Go ahead, man. All right.
and we thought we were good to go until he said this.
I'm not supposed to be out here.
And we didn't know what he meant by that, but we didn't care because he gave us permission and we were still going to send it. So I carried the ball all the way to the top and it was pretty cool looking up there. Here's the drone shot. And I decided to do this aluminum foil ball first. I pushed it off and it kept on going and then stopped. Here it is on the drone. So I went out and got it, but then the drone cam picked up on a car driving by. And after that, I heard a bunch of yelling right when I was about to launch the rubber band ball. The full video is on my YouTube, Ayres. So one day I decided to fill a giant hamster ball up with water and get in it. I moved it to level ground and then put the hose in to let it fill up. Then I put some wood down so it wouldn't roll and let it fill. And here's the checkpoint. It's pretty cool looking and I hit it on the side and then added some more air. And after that I let it fill up to this point. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the zipper. And it got there, so I stopped it. Then I put some goggles on and unzipped it, but it broke. But I got in anyway. I went in and swam to the side. And I looked like a fish. And then I struggled to get out. Then I threw the snorkel and went back under with just the goggles. And it was pretty cool. I swam around, did a circle, and then did another circle. And then struggled again to come up. And it was kind of like a water balloon. So I jumped on it, rocked on it, flipped on it, and then swam on it. Let me know any other ideas you have for me to try.
So one day, after trying and failing to completely fill this inflatable dome up with water, I said we would try again and fix everything that went wrong in a part 2 if the video got enough likes. So that's what we're gonna do. This time we'll be working on completely level ground using way more flex tape. My first task inside the dome was making sure everything was completely sealed off and ready for the water.
My friend got this super powerful water gun and tried to shoot me.
I just continued on doing my normal dome things, and then I saw my dog. I couldn't even pet her, she was so far. But I just stayed in the dome, hour on end, waiting for the water to fill up. I also patched this leak, and my brother got me Sonic because I was hungry. A corn dog never tasted so good. And then I heard the ice cream man. My friends got me ice cream. The guy said,
Subscribe to Dylan Ayres.
I got a bomb pop. I broke it, but it was delicious. Meanwhile, I'd been in there for 3 hours, and the water was actually expanding the dome instead of going up. The sun was coming down, and it was about to rain, so we had to halt the water. So I stopped this leak with my tongue like this, did a cannonball, and tried to ride the waves on this whale. But time was up. I unzipped the dome and tried to ride out on my whale. This happened.
So one day I filled a giant hamster ball up with water and busted the zipper and all the water came out. Full vid is on my YouTube, but anyway, now I want to see if my hamster ball still works so I can put a hoverboard in it and ride in it. So I fixed the zipper and then aired it up. I wanted to see if it would still hold its shape after having all that water in it. And after it was all aired up, it still did. So I pushed it over a bush and out to the yard to mess with it. I kicked it, and then I pushed it, and then I jumped on it, and then I jumped on it again. And after that, I deflated it and then got in it with my hoverboard to air up. And after a little bit, it was done filling up. So I picked up my hoverboard, walked out to the street, sat it down, and got on. And it worked. I spun around, and I also drove to the hill part to go down it. And I fell. But I kept going. And then I turned around and went back up and fell again multiple times. And then I headed home and really fell. So I got out.
That was cool.
And drove off. So one day I wanted to put chalk dash lines all around my neighborhood like I saw this girl on Tik Tok do. So I went to Walmart and got some spray chalk and some regular chalk. Then went home and tried to make a stencil out of cardboard but failed. Then I tested out some spray chalk and after that I measured the middle of the road and marked it. Then I tied some rope to a hoverboard to try to pull me but it failed. Then I made it longer and it still failed. So I tried walking, but that sucked, and I thought it'd be easier with some normal chalk, but it still failed. So I got out a hoverboard I thought was broken, and it worked perfectly. And when I ran out of one piece, I got a new one, and kept going all the way until the end of one side of my neighborhood. I ran out again, but kept going, and then was done. And then I went back home, got some more chalk, and went out to the other side of my neighborhood to get started. And I finished off the neighborhood and ran out of chalk. And then on the way home, my hoverboard died, so I had to carry it all the way home. And now here's driving before the lines, and here's driving after.